now listening to the fastest growing faith-based podcast that empowers, inspires, and motivates your walk with Christ. Ladies, don't you know you are fearfully and wonderfully made? You are far more precious than rubies. You are destiny shakers. Fellas, you are strong, visionaries, and mighty kingdom builders. Together, we are Virtue with Vision, the podcast. We discuss relationships, goals, life, and a whole lot of Jesus. Always remember, you deserve God's best because you are God's best. Let's tune into this week's episode. Welcome to Virtue with Vision, the podcast. I'm your host, Mary Lee Vance, here to remind you that you deserve God's best because you are God's best. Hey guys, this is week 3 of the God Works series, and it has been so amazing to hear different testimonies, to hear people and their stories, how God has worked in their lives. And I have a special guest with me today. Her name is Jacqueline Clemens. Say hi to everyone, Jacqueline.
Hi, hello everyone.
Thank you so much for being a part of the show. I really appreciate it. If you can, please tell us more about you. Who is Jacqueline?
Jacqueline is a lot of things, but Jacqueline is a woman. I am a mother. I am a birth worker. I'm an author, and I am an artist. And I'm a vessel, most important.
Yes, a vessel. Can you tell us what is the name of your book?
The name of my book is called Awaken, and it's cultivating a healthy mindset for pregnancy and beyond.
Wow. So, can you tell us a little bit more about the work that you do and why you were called to it?
Oh, yes. So, the work that I do is birth work. I'm a birth and postpartum doula, in addition to being an artist and being an author. I am the founder of De La Luz Wellness. That's a name, that's the vessel right now that the birth work is presented and served through. And I was absolutely called to this work. So lately, everyone is talking about midwives and doulas, and we're in the press and people are more familiar with what we do. But my journey actually started maybe about a year or so out of high school when a friend of mine became pregnant. She was one of our first ones to get pregnant out of high school. And watching her journey, being part of her journey as a friend, it really ignited something in me that I didn't have any control over. Where I felt like I wanted to serve. And through many things that I observed, I realized the importance and the support that folks that are expecting need, whether it's just taking time out to get your nails done or get a massage or just have a objective ear to listen to the things that you're experiencing emotionally, spiritually, or otherwise. And so, after observing and witnessing and being a part of in these different ways, her birth experience, I was like, oh, I need to be anyone that I care about, anybody that I love, cousins, friends, like I need to be at their birth. And so I began attending the births of folks in my community and supporting them. Aromatherapy, massages, obviously I hadn't officially trained in birth work, and so there were some comfort measures that I wasn't familiar with, but my heart, my soul, and my spirit was there every single time as an advocate and as a supporter. And so about almost 8 years ago, this May will be 8 years, my community approached me and said, I'm doing this training. I think you'd be great for it. And I'm like, girl, I don't catch babies. I don't do that. And I thought she was a midwife, like in my knowing of her and just not even understanding what doulas were. I was like, oh yeah, she's a midwife. So I was like, no, girl, I don't catch babies. She said, no, I don't catch babies. I'm a doula. And she kind of shared with me a little bit about that work. And I was like, okay, like that kind of sounds familiar. Long story short, took the training, realized that in large part I had already been doing the work became equipped with more tools and understanding the history of birth work in our community as Black and Indigenous women. And went to my grandmother's house probably a day or two after the training. She said, "Girl, you always doing something." And I said, what are you doing now? You know? So I told her about the training and I was so excited about it. And she shared with me how her grandmother was actually a grand midwife in Carthage, North Carolina, back in 1900s. And so she's like, that's just what we do. Like, I didn't know you had to do training for that. She birthed all of us and all the folks in the town. And so it was really a beautiful initiation in respect to the training 8 years ago to even learn even more history about my ancestors and the work that we've done over the years. So that's my intro story.
No, that's excellent. You are completely good. That is amazing. I know that, I asked her before we started, I was like, how did you find me? And this is how honest, open, and transparent I keep things, because we don't know each other. She was like, I found you on Instagram and I was looking at, BCI honors, and then you came up as a suggested person. I saw you on your post and, boom. And I was like, man, that is nothing but God. Like, because anything that, if anyone can spot you out and you have no idea who they are, and there's this genuine connection, I just feel like that is nothing but God. And I am so, so grateful that I have someone like you that does, that is a dweller and, does midwife work and, helping Indigenous Black women through the pregnancy, because I've heard that there is a large percentage of Black women that die in the birth giving process because their doctor refuses to listen to them. And I think that's important to have someone that can advocate for you on your behalf, because that's a large percentage. So am I incorrect about that? I mean, step in if I'm wrong.
No, I mean, it's all along the way, right? People have lost babies during pregnancy because they've gone to the hospital and they said that, hey, something is wrong, something doesn't feel right. They've been dismissed. I've written about it as well. I've done some articles with Healthline, and one of my first articles, I talked about my personal experiences where I had gone to a doctor. They prescribed for, I can't even remember. I don't know if it's like a yeast infection or something. I just had an infection and they wrote me a prescription. And my mom is a physician. And I dibble and dabble in procrastination. And so
who doesn't?
All that to say, I didn't get the script filled right away. And so my mom kind of followed up like, hey, did you get a prescription? I said, oh yeah, they gave me this. And she said, wait. So she checks her little medicine booklet. And she finds out that the prescription I was given would have caused me to have a spontaneous abortion.
Wow.
Like I would have had a miscarriage. And so those are God moments.
Yes.
That child is about to graduate high school.
Glory to God.
She's God-given, beautiful spirit. And you think about, there are women every day that have these experiences, but because they are not putting two and two together, or they feel like they can trust, just this blind trust. We're having these experiences. And then of course, when we're in labor, it can be very stressful to not be listened to. Your blood pressure is going through the roof, hemorrhaging. I mean, Black women, it's 3 to 4 times more likely to die or have very severe complications in childbirth, period, across the board. And then you also have postpartum. So after you're home from the hospital and you feel like, hey, something's wrong, and then you go to get checked out and you've been dismissed. Oh, you'll be fine. Take an Advil. Oh, you'll be fine. Blood clot. And so we really have to be mindful every step of the way from conception. I mean, and then we're raising children as Black people. Like it's unending.
It
honestly.
is. And it's like we want I spoke on this the past couple of weeks, that I just want to see something change. Like, just, can we change? I don't care who's the president, but are we going to change, though? That's my question. Like, what's going to change history? What's going to break the stigma? What's going to break the stronghold of this repetitive cycle that us as African American people are in? That's all I care about. Like, let me know how you are going to change the cycle. But I want to hop into how God has worked in your life in 2020. So many times there's been a lot of things that have occurred where people have been, distraught. People have been broken because of this pandemic that we've entered into. And I just want to touch on a little bit, because we're about to go to break, on how God has done something amazing for you in the year 2020 leading up to now.
Wow. The Most High was absolutely phenomenal to me in 2020 in so many ways. And I don't want to step over your break time, but my spirit was renewed in ways that I could not have even imagined. My family was protected. They were healthy. They were sound and continuously growing and prospering. Mm-hmm. And some of the seeds that were planted in 2019 around breaking generational curses and around strengthening and deepening all of our relationship, my children, myself, my family's relationship with the Most High in 2020, it happened in soul expanding ways. Again, gratefully, my children and I have been healthy, but the inner workings of the Holy Spirit, break chains and uprooting, filling it back up with healthy, sound wisdom and doctrine to make sure that certain patterns are just simply not repeated. And so that was something that really came up. We had like a cocoon, an incubation period. And that was time for us, at least myself, to really see myself. And so that journey in part started at the end of 2019. And I was looking at a post that I made a little bit before Christmas. And I said, I feel like I'm in transition. I said, when you're in childbirth, we go through a transition right before the baby is born. I said, I don't know what, but I'm going through transition. And of course, little did I know that we were coming up on this pandemic and going to be home and just everything that happened. But what wound up happening that was connected to that transition was, here, let me identify for you these broken places. Now let me dig up. Let me give you some space. Let me go ahead and do this pandemic so you have space and time for me to dig up these areas. Let me clean out these corners of your heart. Let me really uproot everything that's unhealthy in your heart space, that's specifically for me. And now let me nourish. Let's put down some fresh soil. Let's make sure you have sound doctrine and foundation in here, because I don't want you to go back.
My God. Oh, this is going to be so good tonight, because the Lord is already downloading in me what we are going to talk about after this break. Let's talk about the things that you've had to deal with actually doing some soul searching and allowing God to investigate your heart so you can deal with those broken pieces. Because a lot of us sweep it under the rug and keep going because that's what we're taught to do, instead of dealing with that situation or problem at hand, because it does cause generational issues. So you are listening to Virtue with Vision, the podcast with me, Mary Lee Vance. Don't just talk it, you gotta rock it too. What am I talking about? Virtue with Vision apparel. That's right, my t-shirt line. We not only know we're anointed, but we rock that anointed drip. We read that we should work like Ruth, have discipline like Esther, and pray like Hannah? Why not wear what you believe? Virtue with Vision apparel line believes that we not only read the word, teach the word, and speak the word, but we wear the word too. Go to www.maryleevance.com today and get your drip today. And always remember, you deserve God's best because you are God's best. Tired of dating the wrong one? Do you keep asking God, where is my Boaz? Are you ready to marry the man of your dreams? Fleshly Date or is the book for you? It gives you insight on the difference of dating with or without God in the middle. And it prepares you for God's best. Always remember, you deserve God's best because you are God's best. You can purchase Fleshly Date or Godly Mate at maryleevance.com. Do you have a small business you want to advertise to the world? Just getting started and need to get your business out to the masses? Are you a known and established and prosperous business looking for ways to advertise your brand? Virtue with Vision, the podcast, would love to partner with you. We welcome all brands and organizations. All serious inquiries, please email virtuewithvision@gmail.com. Again, that's virtuewithvision@gmail.com. And always remember, you deserve God's best because you are God's best. Welcome back to Virtue with Vision, the podcast. I'm your host, Mary Lee Vance, here to remind you that you deserve God's best because you are God's best. I have Jacqueline Clemens with me today, and we've already gone so deep into this new series, God Works. So before we went to break, she was discussing how in 2020, God was working in her life of clearing out all of the clutter, the broken parts of her heart, and making her whole. So, Jacqueline, I want to ask, is there something that specifically that pops out to you as to what God had to work on that you struggled with?
Absolutely. In short, it was codependency and generational codependency and the different ways that that looked. Now, if you would have said, Jackie, are you codependent? According to maybe certain definitions, I would have been like, no, absolutely not. I do this and that, like whatever. If anything, maybe certain periods of being like overly like independent or whatever. And so in 2019, I went through a separation from my now ex-husband. And there were some things that took place that were very shocking to me. And I was like, how did I get here? Like, probably the lowest of the low that I've ever felt as a woman and in a partnership, in a relationship. And it was like under the guise of like a godly relationship. So there was some spiritual confusion mixed with that as well. And I have the type of relationship with the Most High where I'm like, son, yo,
you are my friend. I talk to Jesus like that too. Yo, hey, yo, Jesus.
What are we doing?
Yes.
Like, cause this ain't it. Like, I thought you loved me. Like, what? This is what you? Okay. And so even tying this back to me becoming a birth worker in training 8 years ago is when I was coming out of my wilderness experience. I spent a decade. I grew up in the church. I'm familiar with, all of that. And I was like, I need to know God for myself. I'm going to start from scratch. I need to know the truth, bump all this other stuff that I've been taught. And that was the year that the Most High was calling me out of all that. Like, okay, you've discovered, you've sinned, you've tried and you've failed. Are you ready to come back home? And so that was taking place almost 8 years ago.
Wow.
And so now here we are. And so when these experiences took place in that particular relationship, I was like, listen, you already know
Mm-hmm.
I'm but 2 seconds off of being a monk, not listening to nobody else and saying, what you got to tell me, because it can be too much. And so what was revealed to me was, honey, this was you. You chose this. Now let me show you why you
Oh,
chose
speak
this.
on these. Oh, let let these
You,
people know that a lot of choices that they make in people and men and relationships and anything are typically your choice. If you come, I'm here for this today because some people need to be free from that and
yeah,
free from, oh my gosh, I think this is God, but they haven't really consulted God first on the matter to begin with. They just think that because He is in the Lord and you are too, that it just should be.
it's automatic, right? So what happened is,
Yes.
you know, most I was like, listen, you've been ill-equipped, you've been ill-informed,
Mm-hmm.
and you have been prepared to even make a decision about partnership. And basically was like, want to hear it, here it go. And began to show me the landscape, not only of my family history, because codependency, people tend to think about just the part of the person being dependent on another
Mm-hmm.
person. But then God was revealing to me, on the other side of that, you have someone that has a God complex and thinks that they are to provide you with these things that you're dependent on them for. And sometimes in codependency, we float between two sides of that coin. The martyr, right? Come on, Black
Yeah.
women. Oh, I got to be, I'm tired. These kids don't help me around the house. I do everything for everybody. Oh, you're a martyr now. You don't know how to say no. You don't know how to create healthy boundaries.
Mm.
Oh, okay. Choices. And showing me how watching the people in my family, my grandmother, my aunties, these people, my mom, just looking at these different dynamics and how that actually shaped who I thought I was and who I was supposed to be and how I was relating to the
Yeah.
world. So outside of addressing spiritual growth and growing as an individual and growing mentally and all these things, this part was at the very root, because even when I embarked on that relationship, I thought that I was doing it the godly way. I had come out of I'm out of the wilderness. I'm my mind is set. I'm gonna do this the right way. I'm gonna do this, um, whatever. Just things that we tell
Right.
ourselves. And so because I pursued that relationship differently than I had done others, I thought it was like a-okay. Well, when everything falls down to shambles, God is like, sweetie, I was trying to tell you, this is the root though.
This
This
is.
is what I have to dig up
That's
for you
good.
to even begin to ever relate to anybody in a healthy way. We've got to dig this up. And it's not just a label, and it's not just a thing to say. Let me show you your lineage of this in your family. Details, the things that the Most High showed me are things that I couldn't have known,
Wow.
right? And so I started having round tables with my aunties and my cousins and my daughters. Because me, one thing about me, you're gonna tell me something, I'm gonna learn something, and I'm gonna shout it to the to the mountaintop so that the next person doesn't have
Deal with
to
it.
ex-
Experience it.
but definitely starting in the house. I'm over here putting my 17-year-old, well, she's probably 16 at that point, putting her on game. Listen, when you're dating a man, he needs to have a servant's heart. He needs the da 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 da. These are the things you're looking for. This is who you need to be. This is how you need to show up for yourself. But it was based upon the things that the Most High was revealing to me, brokenness that was present before I even had my first relationship, but
Mm.
it was never addressed. And so that was the digging and the uprooting at the end of 2019. So then we come into the top of 2020. And in March, what was it? The 27th. So it was like maybe a week or two after everything got locked down here, my grandmother passed away. My grandmother is my best friend. Has been probably since before I was born. In my mother's womb, I'm sure I was jumping around just hearing her voice. Like that's how long we've been just our love was instant and everlasting.
Oh wow.
When she transitioned, we were all here. We were in the home, and I got a chance to help take care of her in her last month. I don't have any regrets. Before her spirit left her body, I was able to say thank you. I love you. I appreciate all your sacrifices and the love that you've showed me. And so, obviously, with the impact of that, and then 2 weeks prior, the world just got shut down.
Right.
It took the things that, because you start to replay things. You start to think about this person that you love so much. And I started to think about my grandmother's life and the sacrifices, and God, she was just such a beautiful, amazing woman. But then I also said, you know, sometimes we deify things, and we say, you know, my grandmother, whatever, she cooked every day,
Right.
or she did this, she did this. Well, one of the things that the Most High allowed to happen was for that lens to come off, that rose-colored lens to come off, and look at her life, look at her sacrifices, but look at it through the lens of who God created us to be. What cycles you do not need to repeat? What cycles have you repeated unbeknownst to you? So honor her life and her journey, but cut those chains that need to be cut, so that you don't keep pursuing them and moving in that, and that those that are coming behind you don't glamorize some of those things. No, there were times when a foot should have been put down. There were times where different choices and decisions should have been made. There were times where a cup should have been filled up for an individual before they poured out into others, because it would have been a different quality. Right? I don't think scraping the oil at the bottom of my cup, talking about, here you go, here's some oil, y'all. No, I mean, my cup could be
overflowing.
You know, when you got the cap of the olive oil and it gets dried and it's a little goopy, why are we giving each other that? Why are we not filling our cup with oil and overflowing the goodness, good quality oil that we have in abundance that we can give? And was just showing me, like, you over here scraping edges and then calling it holy. That's not
scraping edges and calling it holy. Yes.
I'm just saying. And so it was like this moment where the Most High used the connection of grief, the connection of loss, because I was experiencing grief on many levels. I was experiencing the loss of my grandmother, the loss of a marriage, the loss of outside, a loss of free time because my children ain't going to school no more. Like, it was
free time, none.
And it was just this beautiful opportunity where he's like, no, don't listen to what other people have to say. What did I say? What is my perspective? I love to hear a good word, but over 2020, I was sharing with someone recently, it's the very first season of my life where I felt like the Most High became like Abba, Father.
That's so good.
Like, not just, hey God, I really like a new car, or ooh, Lord, he is so fine, or ooh, could you get these kids off my nerves, or ooh, I messed up, could you save me? Not just genie, not just,
because that's how we use them as. Now, let's be real, we use Jesus as a genie.
Yeah, but there's so much when you talk about that oil. Now, when we use them as genie, that's where we get to scraping.
Yep. Yep,
right?
because that's
'Cause
desperation. Mm-hmm.
we're dried out, we're empty. So now we're like, oh, now that I'm totally empty, let me go ahead and now
That's good.
ask. Um, but the Abba Father part, that's the overflow and the richness of, like, when you think about a father and their daughter,
Mm-hmm.
and the daughters are spoiled,
Period. I.e.,
have
that was me.
more.
I was a spoiled daughter.
I was a spoiled daughter too, but I mean, ain't nothing like getting spoiled
Period.
by the Most High, period. You know what I mean? And so it wasn't in things though. It was in wisdom and in
Yeah.
understanding. And so I was like, it was like really like, oh, like my dad was putting me on game, was what 2020 was for me and my relationship with the Most High. And I was like, oh, I understand. Oh, this, of course, now this makes so much more sense. And the richness and the depth of our relationship began to, now that was the filling, that was filling up those
Mm-hmm.
spaces. Because I got scraped, honey. Trust me, I got scraped. Scraped clean. And then it was like, okay, now we're going to nourish. Now we're going to fill yourself up. And it was such an unfamiliar feeling that I was like, wow, there were times and seasons in my life where I actually thought that that's what was taking place. But now that it's actually taking place, I realize that that has never taken place.
Mm, never. That, and I
That,
have been in that spot. I've been in that arena. I have been in that area where it was just like, oh, is this what it feels to be full of Christ? Is this what it feels to be truly loved by a father? Because for a long time, for me, when I've gone through like a soul cleaning to where God has just had to tell me about me, I was finding myself upset at people and things because they didn't support me in the way that I thought that they should or how I supported them. And I was just like, my feelings are getting hurt, and this is dumb, Jesus. So what are we doing? Like, I have real conversations with God too. I'd be like, hey, yo, so this is dumb. How are we fixing this? Like, cause my life is out of whack. I don't know. I don't get it. So it was kind of God giving me that sense of peace, knowing that, am I trying to win their approval or am I trying to win the approval of him? So when I first wrote my book, Fleshly Date or Godly Mate, I wanted so many people to get involved, like, oh my gosh, this is my dating book, everyone should read it, everyone should get it. But when it didn't turn out that way, and I was just like, well, God, you said, because, you know, I was spending time with you, I was meditating, I was reading, I was doing what you was asking me to, I was obedient, I wrote the book the way you saw fit, and I said, but where is the outcome? I'm still in this 9 to 5, and you said that, and I'm sitting here repeating what his promises are to me, and I'm getting upset because I'm not seeing the fruits of my labor. And he said, but what if it's bigger than just a book? I was like, oh. It's like, you know, some things God just be saying, I'd be like, I didn't even.
and then your mouth goes like this. You're like,
It's, yes,
yes, sir.
right. It's like, I didn't ask you to snatch my edges or take them off and put them back on. But okay. It was just like, what if the vision that I have for you or the plan that I have for you is bigger than just a book? What if this is just the starting point? Are you willing to trust me?
And
Are you willing to trust that I am going to take care of you? Are you willing to trust that this is a process, not a something you put in a microwave, press 1 minute, and then it's ready? Are you ready to understand that there's character built behind my name? And when I understood that at that point, do I like his process? Nah, I ain't even gonna lie. I love Jesus for real, but this process little thing sucks. I don't like it. However, I like it at the same time because now I get to understand the maturity, how immature I was a year ago versus how immature I still am, but growing in maturity. And where he's showing me and where he's leading me and where he's guiding me, how he doesn't want once he makes my name great for his glory, he don't want me to be making him sound or look like a fool. I wouldn't want my name out there being foolish either. So I understand the process. Now, is the process for everyone? No. But if you are willing to understand, and you need to understand what you ask God for, be prepared and ready to receive it. So if you're asking God, God, make me a whole person, be prepared for him to show you the things that are unwhole in your life, things that are causing you damage, things that are causing you to cause damage to others, whether it's jealousy, whether it's anger. Like, he's going to show you every single detail of what needs to be changed. He'll give you the tools. He'll give you the resources. All of a sudden, he'll place a person in your life that will help you. If you're asking God, God, I want $1 million, he's not going to just be like, hey, I'm Santa Claus, here's the million. No, he's going to be like, all right, here's how you build a business. Here's the idea. Here's the purpose. Now get to work. You'll get what you're asking for, but are you willing to put in that time? Are you willing to put in that effort? And it's the same thing with our spirits. We want God to work in this magical way, and it's not, he wants us to be able to understand the value in what he's adding to us. Sometimes God wants to give us favor, but we self-sabotage the favor that he wants to give because we're selfish.
Yes, and that is exactly what it is when you said like the added value. When you were speaking and you're talking about it's really the refining process. Like, it's the refinement that we're going through. But what's different and why we have the peace and why we're going through the things that we're going through, it's because we are becoming we're being put on a more firm foundation. And so initially, when you're digging the hole up and you're digging everything out, you're like, okay, this brick or this wood is rotten. And obviously we have to start from ground zero. And so that's why we're like, really? Like,
ground zero.
But you were like, oh, that was, 80 feet tall. You're like, yeah, but it was 80 feet tall worth of rotten wood. Now we're going to tear all that down. Now we're going to start with a solid, clean cement slab. Now, guess what? No matter what you build on top of that, that cement slab is solid. And as we're being rebuilt, really, from the inside out, it's like, bam, I'm solid. And then that's when you get to the point where you're like, I don't even really want to feel any different than that. This is a feeling that I've never felt before because I'm actually solid. I'm not talking about being solid. I'm not acting like I am solid. I am solid because the Most High is rebuilding me from the inside out. And that fortifying of the spirit, that fortifying of who I am and my identity. Like you were talking about, kind of having these prayers and about this book and things like that. A lot of that happened for me as well around business and birth work and things like that. Like, all right, we obviously had to pivot to a virtual.
Listen, we all did.
I think everyone did, but in terms of our work and being so hands-on and physically supportive, I was like, okay. And that's when the Most High told me to write the book that I wrote, which is called Awaken. But there are things that I talk about with my clients that really, they're not about like the physiology or the biology of birth. They're really about like your spirit. They're about your foundation, and they affect everything in your life, including and up to your pregnancy, your birth, and beyond. And so when I'm talking about cultivating a healthy mindset, the same process that the Most High took me through around healing my heart after my separation and divorce is now the founding principles of this book that I'm writing for expectant parents, because what? They're building a foundation for their family. They have to have a healthy mindset to have a solid foundation to build from. And so while I was being taken through these motions in a seemingly different arena, it was to prepare me to be a vessel to write about the things that are needed as a foundation of a healthy family, or to prepare for a healthy foundation. So when I'm going back and I'm looking at my family and I'm going, oh my goodness, a lot of people don't consider, even when you get married, what's your family of origin? What's your background? There's so many decisions that you'll have to make together, that these need to be conversations that you have, so that when you come across certain decisions, whether it be pregnancy, raising children, or whatever, you already know, okay, boom, this is where I come from. This is what you come from. Are we going to keep? What are we going to keep? What are we going to get rid of? What was healthy? What was toxic? What do we want to establish? These are conversations that begin to be had, and they create a very solid and beautiful foundation for a family. So then when you're like, well, how did we get here? And how can we get back? And it doesn't matter what president is in office and all that. Guess what? It actually doesn't. It's the renewing of our minds as a people. It's taking action individually and as groups, like families, and affecting and having our ripples go out in our community, that actually creates those changes that we're seeking to be handled by policy out here. Now, that doesn't mean that we just live out in crazy land and we don't hold people accountable and all of that. That's not what I'm saying. But at the end of the day, if there is no one governing you, you are a sovereign human being that is responsible to make decisions for yourself, and decisions for the family that you create, and then decisions for the community that you live in, period. If there's no one in charge, you don't lose your responsibility, that God-given responsibility to take care of you and yours, as folks say. And so when we begin to look at how we view family, how we view relationships, what does taking action look like? We can view it differently when we understand that we are personally responsible for so much more in our life.
That is so good. And with that, guys, we're going to go to our second break, and then we're going to wrap up the show. Like, it's been like, this second segment, yes, Jesus, you be coming through. I just love the way God works in my show. Like, you guys have literally no idea, but you are listening to Virtue with Vision, the podcast with me, Mary Lee Vance. Virtue with Vision is the #1 podcast that empowers, inspires, and motivates your walk with Christ. Go subscribe to this podcast and go tell a friend. If you need something to listen to while you're driving to work or cruising out on the town, this podcast is for you. We laugh, have fun, and get a little more acquainted with God each time. Virtue with Vision, the podcast, is available on all media platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Pandora, plus many more platforms. Subscribe today so you can check out all of my past episodes. Go subscribe now. Don't just talk it, you gotta rock it too. What am I talking about? Virtue with Vision apparel. That's right, my t-shirt line. We not only know we're anointed, that anointed drip. We read that we should work like Ruth, have discipline like Esther, and pray like Hannah. Why not wear what you believe? Virtue with Vision apparel line believes that we not only read the word, teach the word, and speak the word, but we wear the word too. Go to www.maryleevance.com today and get your drip today. And always remember, you deserve God's best because you are God's best. Tired of dating the wrong one? Do you keep asking God, where is my Boaz? Are you ready to marry the man of your dreams? Fleshly Date or Godly Mate is the book for you. It gives you insight on the difference of dating with or without God in the middle. And it prepares you for God's best. Always remember, you deserve God's best because you are God's best. You can purchase Fleshly Date or Godly Mate at maryleevance.com. Welcome back to Virtue with Vision, the podcast. I'm your host, Mary Lee Vance, here to remind you that you deserve God's best because you are God's best. Man, Jacqueline, this has been such an awesome time with you. Like, the jewels have been dropping. Like, I'm excited to even go back, and I typically don't do it, but this is a podcast I'm going to go back and listen to because there's just so much like love and healing that is in this particular show. And I absolutely am so grateful that you decided to be a part of my show today.
Thank you. This has been amazing, and I appreciate you having this platform available. Like you kind of alluded to, just how I found you and got connected with you. You never know how the Most High wants to connect people and for what purpose. So I'm grateful that you have this platform available and are doing the things that you're doing with it as well.
Thank you so much. I want to dive in a little bit more about how we can, as a people, as all people, it doesn't necessarily have to be African American people, it can be all people, how we can heal from things that we grown up to see. Like a lot of times, you know, when things happen in the household or in the house, we're like, you better not tell nobody about the business that's in this house. So, I mean, that's just me. That's how I grew up. And like, stays in this house. It happens in this. I'm like, okay, but it hurts. Like, who am I supposed to talk to? So how do we break that stigma of not being able to really express how we feel, that we're broken, that we're hurt, that we need help? Because, you know, a lot of times they say therapists aren't for Black people, and that is a whole lie. I love therapy. A whole lie. I love therapists. They are great at what they do. So, like, how can we break that stigma of showing people that it's okay if you're not okay?
You know, given the conditions that you're talking about, I mean, I'm a expressor. Mm-hmm. And so I often tell folks that my path has been very unique in that way, just because that's my personality. When I was 18, I had written these, you know, 4-page letters to my parents telling them all the things that I didn't appreciate about how I grew up. But not everyone is going to do that. However, the tool of writing it down, the tool of journaling it out, where you can be frank, honest, transparent, actually is a helpful tool. Because to me, it starts with like calling a spade a spade. This is what happened. This is how I feel about it. Because the intention doesn't mean that it was to make you feel that way, but that was the impact of your experiences. And so a lot of people are like, oh, that wasn't my intention, and they dismiss things that family members bring up or children or parents bring up. Intention is not always what comes out in the impact. And so starting in a comfortable space for yourself and journaling those things out may help you get clarity around what things you can just let go on that paper, and then what things you want to have conversations about. Some folks are not comfortable ruffling feathers. Some people are not comfortable stepping into their family space and kind of speaking on certain things. But the fact of the matter is, things don't change until people change. And if there's things that you see that are continuously being perpetuated, that are not just back there and how you grew up, it's important to have some courage and to call it out, because there's a weight in breaking chains. There's a weight in breaking generational chains. And I'm not saying, if you don't feel like that you were called to do that, I'm not suggesting that you do that. But for the generation of chain breakers that I believe we're in, say something. You are saving a young person that does not have the autonomy, or may not feel they have the autonomy, from experiencing the very same thing that you experienced. And just like we want to say, you know, if you see something, say something. And we're talking about terrorists, or we're talking about implicit bias or systemic racism, we have to be just as vigilant within our own families, within our own households. And we have to have some humility, we have to have some empathy, and we have to have some compassion as folks are speaking up, or compassion with ourselves as we're expressing. But journaling, I do feel, is a very personal and safe way to at least get it out. And then if you go ahead and you seek support from a professional, they can help you sift through those thoughts and those feelings. I absolutely do believe in therapy, not just like, you know, therapists are the answer to everything. They're not. You need to be somebody that is like culturally competent. You need to be with somebody that understands how you've been raised and is not going to, on the sly, be judging you, or like, oh my God, da, 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 that's horrible, because they don't understand the culture in which you were raised. So it takes time sometimes to find a good match. So don't just be out here experiencing more harm with therapy with the wrong person. But definitely get that support and make sure that you have it. The other thing is also, if the person is a believer, like, be so real with your prayers to the Most High about the healing that you need. Don't try to be Superman and Superwoman and carrying around all these things. That is literally the place that we are to lay our burdens down. And oftentimes, folks can say, yeah, just give it to God and da 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 da, and it's empty words. They are not taking the time to, because in order to lay your burden down, you have to look at the nastiness. You can't lay down the cute burden. Like, you can't just
the
be
cute
like,
burden. Yes.
and but you didn't really. You have to be able to get your hands. When I was younger, I guess what they call a tomboy. I was out there making wise, and my hands were in the dirt, but I would dig my hands deep into the dirt after I added water and scoop it up until I hit like the dry dirt. You have to get down into that thing and lift it all up. And guess what? You're going to lift it up because it's wet and nasty. You still going to have some sleep, falling through your fingers and going back down. You're going to have to scoop again.
And get the rest of it out.
Scoop again and get it out. And then at some point, you will have gotten the vast majority of the mud out. But see, this is where the scraping comes in, that only the Most High can do, because you want to get the mud out. You're going to have most of it out, and you'll have a bit of dry dirt. But guess what? You still going to have some little crust around the edges and some little spots in there. And the Most High is going to get to scraping. But that's the only way that it's actually going to take place. And I think sometimes we try to look for every solution but God. And then we call ourselves being productive.
Oh,
I've never, ever, and I'm trying to tell you, I love neuroscience. I love studying the brain, remapping our brain, and doing this. I've been listening to some amazing books on it. I do want to mention this one book I'm reading. It's called Switch on Your Brain by Dr. Caroline Leaf. She is a Christian neuroscientist. And she breaks it down. She starts every chapter bringing in a verse and then connecting it to a neuroscientific theory. Even when talking about like renewing your mind, what does that look like? How do we do it? And she breaks down how the Bible actually gives us a guide. Everyone likes to science and the Most High are so separate, but it's like when you actually start to study it and you actually get to go deep, the Most High has given us tools and is giving us a map to handle most of these things. So when you're sitting here and you're like, I've tried everything.
Have you though? Like, my thing is when it's like they'll be like, I've tried everything, but have you like tried the Lord? And my thing is it's not like everyone say had tried Jesus. No, I'm like serious. Like, have you really like looked like don't know like me? No. But try the Lord. And when I say that, I'm like literally there's so many tools that you're missing out on because you refuse to open the book. Yes. You rather, and I say this, you rather hear from all of these experts and you know, theorists and all of these people rather than the long-standing book that is most criticized, most talked about, and has not changed. The words have not changed. I picked up a Bible from, you know, that I had in my childhood that I brought here to Georgia with me, and I was like, I wonder if the words are the same. They have not changed.
And that's the thing, like, and I think that's why I appreciated this particular book, is because she doesn't just talk about her theories. She takes you to the word and then explains the theories. And so I think that's a beautiful reference point. But in terms of just even as a mother, I'll tell you this. When you're raising young humans and you love them so deeply and you want the highest and the best for them, what I realized in this, which was so beautiful and freeing for me, is that guess what? I have limits as a mother. Mm-hmm. But then when I think about my grandmother and I think about our love, but I had a praying grandmother. Huh. You know, everybody talks about that.
They real people. Yeah. They really pray.
Through my choices, through my experiences, it's been the Most High prayers, people that love me, that care about me, that stayed on their knees, my mom praying for me praying for myself, and finally getting to this place where I was like, oh, the highest and best thing that I can do outside of pouring into my children is praying for them and asking that the Most High guide them, because I cannot save them from everything. When I look at this world and how it's going, I'm like, oh my God, like I want to live forever. I just want to make sure I can protect my children. But guess what? That's not reality. If I die tomorrow, and even if I don't, they are in the hands of the Most High. And so when I got that understanding, I understood that that applies to all of us. Yeah. We have to, and again, you have to just be real. So many people are like, I hand it over and I do this and this. And my thing is, like, be relentless. Be relentless about your healing. Be relentless about getting clean and being refined. Be relentless. It hurts. It's uncomfortable. Trust. But the discomfort and the pain and the hurt and the tears, right? 2020 taught me, y'all gonna get these tear stained pillows. You know what I mean? And you gonna get some more. And you know, I'm not a crier typically, where I try to like hold it in. I try to, you know, be very stoic and nah. Honey, I'll be making a pot of oatmeal.
And just breaking down. Listen.
I'm pouring me some tea. I'm driving to the gas station. And then I wipe my tears. But what I realized, I was like, wow, like we were created with this level of resilience and this capacity to grow. And just like that lesson that I got about codependency and having a God complex, the Most High created us so magically and beautifully. And it is literally a slap in the face to feel like anything that we're experiencing on this itty bitty earth, in this itty bitty galaxy, is something that the Most High cannot renew make good, clear, heal. Like, what? So like before we logged in, and how interesting it's been. And I'm learning my children very well in that process. And so my 6-year-old doesn't like to not know things.
That's good.
And I said, God, please tell me it's good, but I'm gonna tell you it's obnoxious. It's like, you only been here for 6 years. There's so much more to learn. And so I was praying like, yo, how do I get this child to not like be upset that he doesn't know things? And then it was like God just dropped in my mind like the galaxies. And then I asked my son, I said, do you know how many galaxies there are? He's like, no. I said, okay, me neither. Let's Google it. I Googled it. Comes up 2 million, also known as 2 trillion, that they've documented.
Wow.
I said, son, I don't even know if the folks at NASA know the names of all 2 trillion galaxies. So until you get to the point that you know the name of all 2 trillion galaxies, there's always more to learn, and that's okay. That's a part of the human experience. So if you feel like, oh, I'm broken here and I can't learn how to be, you can be a different person. You can choose. By your choices, you can become a totally different person. And it's infinite. It's infinite. It's as infinite as those 2 trillion galaxies that are out there that I have no clue what their names are.
Yeah.
But that's how massive and intentional our Creator is.
That's so good, guys. Wasn't this such an amazing show tonight? Like, it was just so great. And I am just so, like, thank you so much for being a part of the show. Like, this was, whoo, it's just so good. So guys, with further ado, I just want to say that I love you guys. I appreciate all of your support, and I will catch you guys next week. Always remember, you deserve God's best because you are God's best. You have just listened to the #1 podcast that empowers, inspires, and motivates your walk with Christ. That's Virtue with Vision, the podcast. Walk into this week winning in virtue. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on YouTube so you don't miss an episode. Virtue with Vision is available on all major platforms. That's right, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Pandora, and many more. Subscribe so you can check out all of my past episodes. And always remember, you deserve God's best because you are God's best. Have an awesome week.